It is Tuesday, July 30th, 2024. And of course, a number of things are taking place in the world. And we'll get to those and see what folks have to say about it. So hopefully in the comments, and maybe some folks will be joining us as well. But yeah, there are a number of things that are taking place in the world, including a landslide in India that killed at least 60 people as monsoon rains bring misery and floods sweep away homes and roads. So definitely that is something that is going on. As a matter of fact, some of the other reports are saying that the landslide killed closer to 93, and all in that line. And Kerala is bracing for more rain. The UK new Treasury chief has axed projects, and definitely that's something that folks are paying attention to. And the billions Britain needs are at Rachel Reeves' fingertips, according to the Guardian, and no fiscal promises need to be broken. The UK finance chief says public finances show $28 billion spending hole, and they are cuts in roads and rail projects in the UK. So definitely that's something going on, as the Britain Labour government is saying it inherited a $28 billion budget hole. And in the Middle East, Palestinians are returning to quote unquote an uninhabitable wasteland east of Khan Younis. So, new mass exodus hit central Gaza as Hamas says Israel is stalling on a ceasefire deal. So, that's something else that we're seeing as well. And the U.S. will defend Israel if Hezbollah attacks from Lebanon, according to Austin, who is definitely part of the defense department and all along those lines. And Hezbollah says it fired at Israeli warplanes in Lebanese airspace. And definitely don't bomb Beirut. The U.S. is leading a push to rein in Israel's response. But that's something else that's going on in the news as well. And Taylor Swift is in shock after a stabbing rampage at English children's dance class is going on in that area, and it left a third child that died in that area. So definitely that's something else going on, as there are stabbings there, and a hero teacher left fighting for her life after saving kids from mass stabbing at a Taylor Swift themed event. So a third girl has died in the UK after one of the worst attacks on children in decades. And Israeli protesters stormed military bases after soldiers were detained for alleged abuse of Palestinian prisoners. So, a sister of a detainee accused of abusing terrorist suspect urges nonviolent protest at military court. And the far right lawmakers are breaking into Israeli detention camp protesting probe into soldiers' alleged abuse of powers. And it looks like the IMF Executive Board has approved a 4-year, $3.4 billion extended credit facility arrangement for Ethiopia. So Ethiopia's currency dives by 30% as IMF-backed reforms to stabilize the economy takes effect. So definitely that is a country in the African continent that apparently is having some financial woes as well. And China vows to focus on consumption with growth target at risk. So China is pledging to steps to shore up its flagging economy, and that's something else that's going on. And as the Chinese economy spirals, the Communist Party is tightening its grip. So that's something else we're seeing, as China's Xi Jinping calls for faster measures to boost domestic consumption. And Russia's Wagner has the deadliest loss in Africa's Sahel. So that's something else that we're seeing, as Moscow production now more difficult to sell after the Mali disaster, according to some experts about that part of the world. And dozens of Russian mercenaries were killed in a rebel ambush in Mali, in their worst known loss in Africa. And Ukraine military intelligence claims role in the deadly Wagner ambush in Mali. And Venezuela has expelled diplomats from Latin American nations that question Maduro's election or re-election. So Peru orders Venezuela's diplomats out after the contested vote, and Panama has suspended diplomatic relations with Venezuela pending an election review. So Venezuela opposition warns election observers are being blocked. And Germany shrugs off Putin's comments on U.S. missiles. So Putin says planned U.S. deployment of long-range missiles in Germany is reminiscent of the Cold War. And Germany says they will not be intimidated by Putin's nuclear threats. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And Greece apparently is imposing restrictions to tackle their goat plague. Apparently, there's a bunch of goats over there in Greece. And Turkey is approving a plan or laws to remove stray dogs from the streets. So, opposition vows to fight the massacre law. So, activists up in arms over Turkey's new stray dog rule. So, apparently, there are stray goats in Greece and stray dogs in Turkey. So, Turkey passes a controversial stray dog bill amid fears of imminent mass culling. So that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And Israel asks NATO countries to object to Erdogan's threat to invade the country's border. Erdogan will send Turkish forces if Israel enters Lebanon, and Turkey threatens to enter Israel to protect the Palestinians. So that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And thousands are protesting Serbia's deal with the European Union to excavate lithium. So thousands of Serbians are protesting against the EU lithium excavation deal, and that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And we oftentimes talk about student protests, and Bangladesh students are protests turned into a mass movement against a dictator, according to The Guardian. And Sheikh Hasina faces her biggest crisis in years. So that's something else going on. So there's protests all over the country, and French police have arrested ultra left activists over pre-Olympic railway sabotage and new sabotage claims at the Paris Olympics and the alleged Russian plot unmasked by drunkenness. So French internet services were targeted in a second attack on the infrastructure. And in the Ukraine war, and I know that Sasha will be talking about this at his show coming up at 11 o'clock, Ukraine's troops say Russia has driven them out of two more eastern Donetsk villages. So after furious battles, Ukraine loses a pair of hard-won villages, and Russia, adapting tactics, advances in Donetsk and takes more Ukrainian land. And Meloni, Italy's Meloni, is vowing to relaunch relationships with China. And Meloni meets Xi as Italy has vowed to relaunch their ties with China. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And officials in North Korea seek medicine for Kim's health problems related to obesity. So Kim Jong Un piles weight back on, forcing aides to seek new medicine abroad, according to South Korean officials. So North Korea is looking to treat Kim Jong Un's obesity, and definitely that's something else that we're seeing as well, as they are looking for medicine abroad to help their leader after his weight gain, and that's what certain spy agencies believe as well. And Jasper National Park, largest wildfire in a century, disturbs a third of a Canadian town. So wildfire melts cars and turns homes to ash in Jasper. And definitely that's something else that is going on in terms of weather and all along those lines. So definitely there's a lot of things that are taking place in the world, including the U.S. to revamp military forces in Japan in a historic move as regional tensions mount. So the U.S. to revamp its command in Japan amid a renaissance in defense ties. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And an Indonesia president tries out a palace in a proposed new capital. So that's something that we're seeing. And apparently, they're saying that foreign actors will seek to influence reshaped U.S. presidential race, according to intelligence officers, and all in that space. So Russia is relying on unwitting Americans to spread election disinformation, according to U.S. officials, and all in that kind of way. So it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about a number of these things. I've got Rick Rosner with me, I've got Sasha Starr, and I've got others that'll be joining us as well. But definitely that was some of the news that was going on in the international scene. I didn't get to that much of the national news. I may do that in a minute. I see that Shaquille sitting in the background, and he may pop in as well later on. So, how are you doing over there in California, Rick? And how are you doing over there?
Barely awake. I stayed up last night and watched too much Olympics, so I didn't get much sleep.
You were watching the Olympics. I watched a little bit of the Olympics too. There were some good races, including some good swimming matches and all along those lines, and definitely the gymnastics, where the U.S. finally got a medal after a long drought. Though they wound up winning a bronze, and they were celebrating that bronze and everything in that space. And that was good to see that that was taking place, and definitely it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space. It looks like Kamala Harris has had a failed Iowa caucus campaign, so it looks like that'll be some interesting news, and maybe that'll keep her momentum, stall her momentum. But we'll see what happens in that space. But yeah, definitely the race is going on, and the Secret Service and the FBI officials will testify about the Trump assassination attempt. So. The head of the Secret Service will address security failures in a hearing on the Trump assassination attempt, and said, "What I saw made me ashamed." So the acting secretary, the Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe, is over there, and I guess they'll be doing some testimony as well. So we have an acting Secret Service director until they put somebody else up as well. So looks like the celebrity studded white dudes for Harris. We were talking about that, raised $4 million for the vice president. So it looks like Jeff Bridges, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and a number of movie stars were on that particular call. And they're also saying that Kamala Harris said she will not ban fracking if she wins the White House. So I know there's some people that were fracking supporters that were worried about that, but I guess she's saying that she will not ban it if she is elected and everything.
Fracking's like a lot of technologies that it's fine if you do it responsibly, and it's terrible if you are sloppy with it. And I've told this story a bunch, but they've tried fracking with a nuclear weapon in Colorado, where I lived in the 1970s. They were trying, there was this Atoms for Peace program, which is like, how can we use atomic bombs to do good stuff? And so they drilled a hole a mile down,
Wow.
and they set off a nuke, and it shook out it worked. It shook out a bunch of natural gas. The only trouble was it was radioactive, so you couldn't use it.
Wow. Speaking of Kamala Harris and everything she's doing, a lot of people, including Steve, were wondering whether our governor would be the vice president, but he has bowed out. And part of the reason he's bowed out, from my understanding, is he's concerned that his lieutenant governor could take over duties. And there's also talk that he may want a 2026 Senate race and everything as well. So I still think he has some national aspirations, but he has bowed out of the VIP sweepstakes. So there's still some other top candidates like Mark Kelly and like the gentleman from Kentucky, as well as some other folks, including Pete Buttigieg, that may still be on the list and everything. But it looks like he has bowed out of that particular uh, race, and might be having some other things that he's looking at as well. Hey, Rick and Sasha, one of the other things I was curious that y'all's thoughts on is, and I'm still trying to understand all the changes, but apparently Biden is backing some major Supreme Court reforms, including some term limits and some other things that he would like to have done and everything. So, will these kind of proposals fly? Because I mean, it's got a majority Republican Congress and everything, so I'm thinking that they probably won't go
No,
far.
no, not well. Sasha, go, and then I'll go.
I have great difficulties to understand why he's doing that now, not 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. That was the time to do it. All these charges against Trump and the indictments or so on, that should have been done 2.5 years ago, not now, so close to election. So I don't understand this. Biden has a lot or had a lot of good intentions, same as about the war in Ukraine, which he delivered like too little too late, and so on. So there is a talk in the right direction and inaction, complete impotence to implement that. This is something what I don't believe in the great legacy of Joe Biden. There are some talk that it will take generations to understand the greatness of Joe Biden or so on. I don't have dozens of years. Wait for that. In my opinion, he's. You can say that he's a good man, good husband, good father. You can say all that. I have no problems with that. But to say that he is one of the greatest presidents of the United States, sorry, I disagree with that 100%.
No, Congress can't do anything. This is one of the worst, most paralyzed Congresses in history. In a year and a half, they've passed 70 pieces of legislation. A functioning Congress, House of Representatives, passes 300 to 400 pieces of legislation in a two-year term. This might be the least effective Congress since about 1829.
Oh wow,
That might be a positive thing, Rick. Do you guys need that many new laws? Do you need that many new bits of legislation? I always say that when it comes to Australian politics, at the end of a government's term, they go, "Oh, we introduced X amount of new legislation," and I'm like, "Well, the world was the country and the world was pretty good before you passed all these new laws. Like, how has this improved things?" So
these aren't like laws to change the world. A lot of them, like to make sidewalks mandate sidewalks or mandate you can't cook hamburgers. It's stuff like a lot of it is normal government functioning, like spending bills that the government needs to just keep going.
Well, they pass all of those, right? So what are the other 300 or 400 bits that they didn't pass? Maybe that's a good thing. I'd like to just draw everyone's attention to why some people just don't have any trust in media and in tech, which is big media these days. So, Mark, would you mind bringing up a share screen and going to Google?
Yeah. Once you go up to the shared screen, you haven't brought it up yet.
So I can't do it because I'm on my phone. So can you bring up a share screen and bring up a Google page for us?
Oh, a Google page, just a general Google page.
Yeah, just a general Google page.
I got you. I was trying to figure out what you meant. So I understand. We'll do that. Let me get that situated. Trying to find one and everything, because a lot of times that's where we get some of our news from. But yeah, I'll do that while I'm doing all along those lines. Google News.
Not Google News, just a normal Google page. Just like the normal homepage of Google.
Oh, just the normal Google page.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me do that while there's always there as well. While I'm doing that and trying to find a normal Google page and all along those lines. While I'm doing that, what are your thoughts just in general, all of you, about safety and just in general in the country and all along those lines? Because one of the things that I'm hearing is that because the son of El Chapo is going to be in the courts in Chicago, that folks are being told to be cautious if they are in Mexico, because there may be some mass protests in Mexico, since they have caught this major leader of the cartel and all in that space. So I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts around that, because that was one of the things that I saw was folks were trying to figure out the nature of that and what was going to happen in that regards.
Well, the rise of the cartels is in part because of the U.S. war on drugs, which I believe was started under Nixon, and you don't have the cartels without U.S. demand.
Yeah.
And it's been a not entirely successful 50-year effort to do something about drugs, and it's led to the devastation of Mexico by crime. So it'd be nice if we could try something else, but it's the same as everything else. We can't do anything, try anything with a paralyzed Congress. Not that Congress would ever relax drug laws. That's a
I
loser.
wish they would. I wish they would just legalize the thing, because it's not doing anything. All you're doing is you're turning people into criminals. You're adding an enormous amount of money to this, which incentivizes people to become criminals. They get worse quality drugs. They did a trial of this where they had safe places. I think it was in Washington State for people that were trying to get off, and they gave them real drugs for a period of time as they were trying to wean them off. And that, from what I understand, was quite a successful program. We know that a lot of people become addicted to drugs, especially opioids, after they've been in hospital. Just criminalizing that, it's not working. That's the bottom line. It hasn't worked. Okay, so Mark, just type in assassination.
Type in assassination, because the first
assassination
is about the
don't press enter. Just type assassination. Let's just see what the first few things that come up are.
Assassination attempt, assassination Trump.
Okay, so go assassination attempt. Maybe they fixed it. All right, now press enter.
I did. It says new acting Secret Service director, FBI official to face Senate questions on Trump.
Well, they've obviously fixed this. So for the last 24 hours, if you typed in assassination attempt, it would bring up all the other ones, but it wouldn't, as you can see from New York Magazine 51 minutes ago, it wouldn't bring up the Trump assassination attempt. That wouldn't come up as the thing. And this is the sort of behavior that people get annoyed about, right? It doesn't matter what side of politics you're on. Just stop manipulating our news feeds and our search feeds.
I mean, but part of the manipulation, isn't it based on, and I don't understand all of algorithms, but isn't it based on kind of like what your own search history is and the algorithms? At least that's what they claim.
No, because Google fiddles with it. And, I use Google a lot without, like noticing the fiddling. But if you do search for something like locksmith, for instance, because you've locked yourself out of your car or your house, you're going to get a bunch of bogus listings from people who've paid to have their sites listed first. And these are rip-off artists who are going to charge you $400 to let you back into your house. Legit locksmiths aren't even going to be on the first page.
Well, no.
The other thing is here that you're logged into your account. So if you don't log into your account and then you type it in, like if you sign out of your account and then you type stuff in, you see what happens. But as Rick said, there's a lot of manipulation of data, and just knock it off. Like, people want to be able to see things themselves.
Well,
anyway, moving along.
A bunch of locksmiths came in that are legitimate locksmiths in terms, and
yes, but you're logged into your own account, so it's bringing up locksmiths that are close to you that have paid to be top of the list. That's what I think Rick was saying. But as I said, the point is, we've seen Facebook and Google and other big tech companies now trying to censor or manipulate the search results that you're going to get. And it's like, can you just stop? Stop doing that. We just want to be able to see what we want to be able to see.
The general term coined by Cory Doctorow that I've mentioned a lot is enshittification. That at the beginning, when Facebook is new, when Google was new, it was your friend. It gave you clean results. It was easy to use. You got a lot of free stuff. And as time goes by, these companies want to start getting return on their investment for their shareholders. And so they start doing crappier and crappier stuff, like, paid placement on the first page and Facebook data mining, and that people pay them for. And a lot of the stuff that they get paid for is not in our interest.
Well, I mean, the other thing that I don't know, and maybe y'all got some thoughts, and Toby has some thoughts and everything, is how much of the information that we get is from various legitimate sources. Because I know that Sasha does a lot of research on Ukraine and Russia and Israel. I try to get some research on some various things that are going on in the world and everything, and a number of them are from secondary sources, or as you would put it, Shaquilla and Jacoby, biased sources, because definitely the Guardian is probably biased, and definitely Midas Touch is definitely biased to the left. Some people would argue that Fox is biased, so a number of these sources are very biased, even though there are a number of conflicts in a number of countries that are getting aid and rescue. I just told you that I think the IDF is getting ready to give $3.2 billion to Ethiopia. And I know that there's been a lot of money that has been given to Ukraine as well. And we hope that the money is actually getting to the people that are needing the money and not necessarily the governments that may be hijacking the money, which could be taking place as well. So I don't know y'all's thoughts on this, because this is definitely something that folks are concerned about, is the nature of the what's going on and how accurate it is.
You got to try. I mean, if you really want to, if you're trying to figure out what's going on, you can triangulate. You can read a couple stories from liberal sources and a couple stories from conservative sources, and see who is BSing you.
That's still not really the point, though. As I said, Mark was logged into his account, but if you're not logged in, there's a heap of news reports across international media right now that says that as you type those words in, it's not coming up with what should be the most searched term. Why is it not doing it? They shouldn't do that. Jatobi, you've had your hand up. If you want to jump in.
Just to point out, these search engines aren't media themselves. What the search engines are doing, because they are free tools that everybody use, their algorithm itself is based on, a lot of things, but they're big things. You can are like a number of hits for a particular site, because they want to get to what's hot. That makes money for them, because they're selling off the data that you're searching on in the first place. Then you've also got this. That's why they have these search engine optimization tools. Those search engine optimization tools are looking for keywords and key things that are going to make whatever pops up. Like when you type in assassination attempt, there are particular things that pop up in that algorithm that grab these articles first. Yes, Google, yes, Facebook, yes, all these things do that. However, those things are optimized to a lot of the not only regional areas, localized areas, but also individualized. It's a similar thing to what was done when you go to the grocery store in the past and you buy diapers. And if you used a credit card, never use your information or anything, the next thing you used to get in the mail was information about diapers. That's how they're able to keep a lot of that information cheap online. So it's not a defense of what Google does, because yes, Google definitely, they are a business. They're in for making money, and what they do, they sell off what's being searched, what's being hot. What Rick pointed out, truthfully, is true. There is no way to just type in, hey, this is what I want, and it pops up immediately anymore, because of the fact they're making money off of what is being searched, what's hot, what people are looking at, so on and so forth. So they basically create silos for each individual or each localized area. Also, what Rick points out is very true. If you want the truth, you have to get out of your silo, because what ends up happening, especially on Facebook and the social media sites, is that we get so trapped in our own silos. That is what these social media companies do. They research how to keep you online, because how to keep you online is how you're making money. So basically, if they keep hitting you and inundating you with the same information that you're hearing repeatedly, that keeps you in your silo, keeps you happy, keeps you coming back. And that's what they've done with kids. Hence the reason why they're trying to figure out ways to regulate kids getting on social media. So
it's a pain to have to go to multiple sites to figure out what's going on every single story.
Completely agree. That is, a convenience store is expensive for a reason. It's because it's expensive because it's there. It's convenient. Social media sites, search engines, optimization, all this other stuff is convenient. So those silos are just easy convenience. If you really want to search for the answer to what you're looking for, it takes more than just, hey, I see this on my silo, I see this on my feed, so it's got to be true. yeah, it sucks to research, but it does help to research. Hence the reason why a lot of, I hate to bring up a very touchy subject that's just popped off for the Olympics, but hence the reason why a lot of people fell into the trap of the Olympics and got so upset about it, about saying, well, this was the Last Supper. That was what was on a lot of people's feeds. That's what popped up, and a lot of people said, okay, that's what I'm believing and reading on, rather than looking actually into what they were doing and what that actually was. And it had nothing to do with the Last Supper, but people fell into their silos and got lazy, and that's what happened. So yes, it sucks to do that. It sucks to have to research and do extra steps. That's just the way that it is now because of capitalism and making money.
I like Drudge. Go ahead, Shaq, and then I'll.
Sorry. No, that's okay. You go, but I just want to bring up something.
Drudge Report started off as a very conservative news aggregator. And then, I don't know, 4 years ago, for some reason, they threw their arms up and said, we can't really be, I don't know, they grudgingly moved towards the center. And so I like going to Drudge because it still wants to be conservative, but it won't be like just give you conservative crap to the exclusion of everything else. They'll more or less, all right, I'll tell you, they don't want to, but they'll give you like a truthful assortment of the news.
So we went slightly off the topic. I understand how the search engines work. What I'm saying here is that they have pushed down results, and they were criticized for this in the last election campaign, and they ought not be doing it. They've said that they weren't going to do it this election campaign, and they oughtn't do it. Just every time they do that, they're going to make a lot of people feel like if you're covering it up, then I don't believe you. I'm not going to respond to the Olympic stuff. I don't agree with what you've said, Jacoby. We discussed this on yesterday's show, but I won't debate that right now. I just want to bring up something else. So a show that Jacoby and Rick were on a month ago, or a couple months ago, I can't remember quite how long ago, we talked about AI. And I walked away from that session going, I really need to do something, because I can't just keep being a dinosaur. I need to look into AI. I need to look into ChatGPT and all these different things. And so, I've enrolled in a couple of courses actually to bring me up to speed, or to help to bring me up to speed. And I started applying it for data analytics in the markets. And very excited, actually. Excited and horrified at the same time at what I was able to do. Excited because of how quick I could do it, and horrified that I was able to, in less than a minute, get data or get results from the data that previously would have cost me, thousands of dollars and a month's worth of time to actually get. And this was just able to go through the data and give me results. Now, to be fair, some of the results were incorrect, or they were aberrant results, and so we still needed to filter that out. But we would have had to do that anyway. So I was so incredibly impressed by what it was doing. And then I started to ask a couple of questions, like if I got ChatGPT or any of the others to write the code for me, who owns it? Is it mine? Who can see what I've actually done? Is it local, or is the company that's providing me the technology able to see what I'm doing? And if you guys remember, and I know you're not from finance, but if you guys remember a handful of years ago, Bloomberg, which is the preeminent data source for financial professionals working for insurance companies and banks and hedge funds, etc., got in some trouble because what they were apparently doing was they were keeping records of the news articles and the share codes that certain managers, or that all their managers, were actually researching at the time, and they were releasing that as a report. And people were saying, hey, I'm using the Bloomberg terminal to look up the things I want to look up. You should not be watching what it is that I'm looking up, because that's, proprietary information, and, we're very secretive about our trades. Now, Bloomberg has made changes and saying that they don't do that anymore. But that'll be the big question that I've got with AI, we even just with technology in general, when people say, the big tech companies can read your emails and things like that. If I'm trying to do something as a corporation, and I've got proprietary information that I'm dealing with or stuff that's sensitive, which very often is just it's not that I'm doing anything particularly wrong. It's just I don't want my competitors to know what I'm looking at. How do I safeguard myself against that? So I think that's very, very interesting, and I think that's probably going to become more of a concern as we start to embrace AI, because as you guys know, I'm a technophobe, but if I'm looking at AI and saying, hey, wow, I can really see how I can use this and how this is going to make a really big difference to the things that I can do, if someone like me is beginning to finally get on board, I think these sorts of questions are going to be important.
Yeah, while you were talking, I just punched
on
into
those lines.
while you were talking, I punched into AI because I'm writing a novel set in the near future. I said, where might people go for a night out in the year 2032? Within a second, it gave me 10 pretty good ideas that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of myself. And of course, I won't, I'll whatever, if I take any of it, I'll make it my own. But yeah, it is helpful for stuff like that.
No,
But what I think's unfair, and this example I'm using may just be like totally off, but if I can, Jacoby is, I assume, a much better video game player than I am. Okay, unless he wants to go back to like Mario Brothers on the Mattel Nintendo, which was my favorite childhood game. Then look, he's obviously going to be much better at computer games. So Jacoby comes up with an idea for creating a video game because he knows the market, he knows what people like. And I, who know nothing about video games but happen to run the AI technology, am able to see what he's experimenting with. And then I can go, oh, that seems like a really good idea. He's registered the company. He's already come up with a really good video game. Now he's working on something else. So can I deduce from what he's doing that actually I'm going to take those ideas? And if I own the AI code that he's using to help write the video game code, however it works, sorry if I'm being a little bit inaccurate in what I'm saying, but I think the point I'm trying to make. That's a concern. That's certainly a concern with financial markets. I don't want people to know what my strategies are. Some of my strategies I freely release. Other strategies I keep very, very closely guarded. Not because they're like I've come up with some new technique. It's just because I don't want you to know what I'm doing. Toby, do you want to respond to that?
So in the gaming community or in the programming world, this has already been there for a while, which when I always say that the gaming and the tech world is the canary in the coal mine, truthfully, for where AI is going. For example, if you're talking about video games themselves, there's a whole mod community where basically individuals will take a game that gets put out, they'll crack the code on the game, rewrite the game, and then put out what they want to in there. There's a game where there's dragons flying around. Somebody can crack that code or modify that code and then put in Thomas the Tank Engine as the dragon instead of the dragon itself. So that's been around forever. And the way that the gaming and the tech community have dealt with it is that they could not go on and sell that game if they pulled that game directly. However, you can sell a game that is kind of similar, which is actually, there was a big lawsuit that came. Well, there was supposed to be a big lawsuit, but a company has actually avoided it right now. Right now, one of the biggest games ever to come out was Pokemon. Pokemon has been out for eons. Just recently, last year, there was a game called well, actually, I think it was this year, a game called Palworld. Palworld was essentially Pokemon, but they just kind of adjusted it and added in extra things that you utilize in the game. Palworld has sold a ton of copies. Well, it's a free game, but they've sold a lot of information and made a lot of money off of that game so far. They were going to get sued by Nintendo because some of the characters and items and things on the inside of the game are similar. Nintendo cannot sue them because there is it goes into the art. Is it art or is it code? And that becomes a whole, how an artist can copy somebody or take a piece from there. So what
I think you guys slightly missed my point, but Steve Brown's here. Steve,
I'm getting to your point. So what you're talking about is similar going into the financial market about stealing strategies and stealing things and ideas and how you do things based on how you utilize AI, because that is still essentially dealing with code, programming, and so on and so forth. So if we both were in that same financial market and you utilize AI in a particular way, And then I was able to deduce based on the use of your AI and using my AI code. That is essentially similar to what's going on in the tech world and the coding market about being able to code in my way and code in your way. And
well, I think it's a question of if you can beat me to the market. So if I'm going to take a $500 million position and
exactly.
you know that I'm going to, you take the position early, and that takes up liquidity from me, right?
Exactly.
So,
but that's what I'm saying. That is going to be, yes, what you're talking about is so true. It's going to be another market because it has been in the gaming and the tech world for a long time and nobody paid attention because that's a niche market. But now
I think the question, Jacoby, and this is what I'd be prepared to pay if I'm going down this path. This is where I'd be prepared to pay substantial amounts of money. I want to be able to pay somebody to protect me from other people being able to see what I'm doing.
And that is your next battle. That is going to be the next battle due to the fact that, again, it was in the tech and the coding world for a long time. Antivirus and all this other stuff was because people were stealing a lot of things. We used to steal. There was LimeWire. There was Pirate Bay and all this other things where people used to steal Adobe Photoshop all the time. Well, you know what you got to do with Photoshop now? You cannot steal it because the way you have to deal with the codes and stuff. That's making its way to the financial market. That's making its way to a ton of other things with AI. And that is going to be a battle that we're going to have to deal with. But that's only a small battle because if you look at AI, because honestly, we never really talked about another issue that AI is having. And Sanjay Gupta not Sanjay Gupta, but Fareed Zakaria brought it up on a show talking about the power consumption problem that AI is going to have. Because if you look at the power consumption around crypto, magnify that times 10 around AI.
I think we could have a whole show just on this subject. But Steve Brown's here, Rick, before you go. Steve Brown's here. I know you're always limited on time, Steve. Come on in. Join us.
Yeah, just a couple of updates. Breaking news in the U.S. where Governor Cooper withdrew from the race. I know you probably already talked about it, but I've been getting a lot of calls about why. Some speculation that I'm a little bit confused because there's some speculation about him being out of the state when Mark Robinson would become the acting governor. But a state senator last week confirmed to me that would not be the case and that that really wouldn't be a major factor in his decision. So everyone's a little curious. It might have been something to do with his age, that he's 67. I don't know, but it looks like it's down to Kelly, Buttigieg, Shapiro, and Bashir of Kentucky. So we're going to see what happens, folks. And meanwhile, the other thing that concerns me is Venezuela and the fact that Maduro isn't willing to step down. And I'm sorry I'm late, guys. I've been, trying to book guests. I've actually been playing phone tag, believe it or not, with Gavin Newsom of California. I'm trying to bring the governor on a station in North Carolina. So more of my time is now booking these guests as well, which I'm trying to bring on live TV as well. But
give me a call. Give me a call after the show, Steve. I'll I spent a lot of time in California. I'll just stay that on air. Just give me a call after the show.
Okay, great. And then I don't know what else is going on in the world, but I think at the end of the day, what I will say is that I think that it's really going to come down to the message the Democrats have and whether or not the economy is going to get better under their leadership. So I think the race needs to shift more to policy rather than just people running and really looking at measuring what's going to happen. There is a Kamala factor now, but I think the honeymoon will be over after the convention. We'll see what kind of a bump she gets. And let's not forget, it's not a national election. It comes down to 4 states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and North Carolina. I do want to give Jacoby McDuffie a shout out. He was a great voice for the cricket tournament. He and I were there together in the Major League Cricket, and boy, he was really amazing. It was a great time. He and I spent some time at the end there on the ground there in Morrisville, and it was a lot of fun. It was about 120 degrees outside, but
Steve, are you telling me that I need to introduce Jacoby to Cricket Australia and Cricket India and Cricket the UK? Because if he's done such a good job, maybe we've got to poach or we've got to do things reverse. Americans normally poach us. Maybe we've got to poach him. Is that the story?
Jacoby did great. I mean, he was really. I mean, it was like, he does the Canes games, but I was like, people didn't think I knew him. I'm like, I know that guy, and everybody on my council knows. My nickname on the council is, they call me either Hollywood One Take Row, or I have all these connections because I'm on TV and radio so much, and they go, you don't know him, and then I go up to him and give him a big hug. We take a selfie. And he knows him too, and everyone was like, damn. They placed a bet. They go, you don't know that guy.
I want to come back to to the political stuff that you said.
Yeah.
Can I just make this point? I've made the point recently about, I was in Darwin, and if we can become friends in Japan, then surely Republicans and Democrats in America don't have to be at each other all the time. But I'll just sort of say from a personal note, there was a time period when I was really disillusioned with what I saw as being problems in Australia. And the best thing I did was leave. I went traveling, I saw other countries, and then I all of a sudden went, wow, Australia is actually a pretty good country. And I really wish that Americans would see that. For all of the flaws of your political system, for all of the division, you're still a wonderful, beautiful country. And I think people get so caught up in political differences that they forget that. For the major instability, the last majorly destabilizing thing that occurred was the January 6th stuff, right? That was not good. That was a really bad moment in American political history. However, it's not what we see in Venezuela, right? It's not what we see in other parts of the world. And that doesn't mean that because other parts of the world have it worse, that we should just not care when things go wrong in our own countries. But let's put things in perspective, right? The United States is a strong country. And I believe that no matter how much a person or even a political party tries to game the system, the country is strong enough and has processes enough to be able to overcome that. But I would say I really wish that the political parties, the major political parties and their strategists, stop trying to game the system. Because I actually don't think, and maybe I'm naive, I don't actually think that the world is that complicated, or certainly the countries that we live in are that complicated. What do you need to do as government? You need to provide people with some stability and some support. You need to provide them with the infrastructure and the things that they need communally. That's why we pay taxes, healthcare, education, roads, etc. Make sure that when people go and buy food or drink, that what they're getting is going to be safe for them. These are pretty simple things to get right. All the other stuff people can argue about, but I think that we should recognize what a massive advantage we have being lucky enough to be born in or live in Western countries. So whatever happens in your next election, whatever happens in the elections after that, with all the political skirmishes that you see, don't become too disillusioned with your country, because, it may not be perfect, but it's better than all the rest.
But speaking of that and everything, and somebody brought it up, I think, in one of the comments and everything, do we actually think that there will be a debate between Trump and Kamala? Because I've heard some people that have put out in the media, whether that's accurate or not, that Trump has backed out, and there are others that are saying that he's just waiting until she is the official candidate and that he will go ahead and do the debate and all along those lines. So do we think that there will actually be a debate between Trump and
I think there will be, because it's going to be so much egg on his face if he doesn't have one after goading Biden. But I'll also say this. Yeah, probably my understanding is he's waiting for it to be confirmed that it's her. But I'll say this. You know how everyone on the right was like, oh, Biden's going in and he needs to get all these people to train him and all that sort of stuff. You know what? Trump's going to need a little bit of training. He's going to need to have a few mock debates first, because he can't get away with what he got away with in the Biden debate. The fact that he didn't answer a lot of questions, you're going to go on the biggest mass deportation campaign. How are you going to do that? You're going to do this. And he just didn't answer the questions or pivoted to other things. The only reason that he got away with that, in my opinion, in the Biden debate was because Biden, either gave some very shaky answers and had a shaky voice, and when he wasn't talking, he just had this very old, distracted look on his face, and it just wasn't a good look, and that overshadowed whatever Trump did. That's not going to be the case in a Trump-Harris debate. So Trump's going to need to come out with some substance and not just sit out there and say, I was wonderful, I was the most wonderful. Can you believe how wonderful I was? That's not going to work.
Yeah. I think that let me take a shot at this. I think that here's what I think. I actually think it's in the best interest of Trump to probably not debate Vice President Harris because, she is a great debater, was a prosecutor, is more telegenic and charismatic, I think, and much younger. And just having them on the stage, if we remember in history, the Nixon-Kennedy debate, she may come across. But here's what's going to happen, and Shaquille Latimer has brought up a really good point. His ego is too big to not debate her, so he's going to accept the debate. But I think what he's not going to stand is that she's going to take a lot of the limelight away. I think that's what this race is kind of different, right? I mean, think about it. He was expected to not win. He was not expected to win in 2016, and he did win, right? And now everyone is saying that he should win this race because he's run against Vice President Harris. So in many ways, he has more to lose than she does. Because one thing I've learned in athletics is one thing my coach taught me was when a fighter has nothing to lose, he can be more dangerous. And so I think that he goes into this election with more pressure. I think his ego will be crushed if he loses to her. And I think right now he can't stand the fact that all of the limelight is going to her. They're not talking about the assassination. They're not even talking much on CNN or these networks about his criminal conviction. It's all about Kamala Harris. And
it may well be the case. It may well be the case at the moment. I'm not sure that'll necessarily be the case, in a couple, in a month's time. But you're right. Look, she's a good-looking person. She sometimes says things, a bit of a word salad, but she's reasonably articulate. She is representing something. I don't really think she's put much of a foot wrong yet as the presumptive candidate. And he cannot do what he did with Hillary Clinton. He can't just come out swinging and saying, interrupting and, I'll put you in jail and all that sort of stuff. He can't do that this time around because he's got to try and show that after having 4 years of experience being the president, that he is in fact more presidential now. If he can't do that.
And the second thing I'll say, she'll also have the vice presidential nominee, whether it's Senator Kelly, Governor Beshear, or Buttigieg. And here's the thing. Yeah. At the end of the day, the one thing I'll end with this before we go to Jacoby. When we look back in history, one of the reasons why President Obama won was that he had tremendous experience by his side in Joe Biden, a man who had been in the Senate for 50 years, a man that was the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, was involved in the attack on bin Laden, was there every step of the way, knew 60 world leaders, had their cell phone numbers dialed into his phone. And
Hillary Clinton had that sort of experience.
Yeah, but here's where I'm going with this. When there is no way you can say that Senator Vance has the experience to be president if something were to happen to Trump. And I really think that President Trump blew it with this choice. Because I
actually think that he's going to end up replacing Vance for a number of reasons. The cat lady comment, I do think it was taken a bit out of context, but it's besides the point. It was very, very poor. It was a poor comment. Look, he probably never thought that he was going to end up in a vice presidential position. I just want to very quickly say, people say there's 4 states, there's 7 states. People talk about Nevada, they talk about different places, they talk about New Jersey and Virginia. People have even said that are on the right, hey, he's got a shot at winning New York. My personal opinion, it's going to be a close race. It's going to come down to, I think he's going to win Georgia back. I think it's going to come down to the Rust Belt. I think it's going to be Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. People talk about Minnesota, people talk about all those other states, but I think ultimately it's going to come down to those 3 states. And I'd still think, whether it be under Biden, if he was still the candidate, or whether it be under Harris, I think it's going to be an extremely close race, and it's going to come down to those 3 states. I'll leave it to Rick and to Toby.
2 things. One is, I found out last night, Vance never wrote that he had sex with a couch. That was a joke somebody threw up on Twitter, and it just took off. And thing 2 is, you talked about Obama getting elected backed up by the very experienced Biden. One reason Obama was able to get elected was he didn't have 30 years in the public eye like Hillary Clinton did. He had 4 years as senator when he ran for president. Ditto for Harris. She had 4 years as senator when she became VP. She doesn't have that 30-year presence, because Hillary had a whole thing as being, Bill Clinton's wife, and she tried to present herself as somebody who's not like a wife, as somebody who's an equal partner and with aspirations of her own. That backfired, and she ended up being kind of pushed into putting out cookie recipes when she was the first lady of Arkansas, and her just decades in.
I think the biggest thing, Rick, is that in the Democratic primaries, Democrats spent the entire time telling everybody that they shouldn't vote for her in the primaries. She wins anyway over Bernie Sanders. The Bernie bros felt like he was pushed out, and then it was this sexist, racist, terrible thing if you didn't vote for her. But you've just told everybody how bad she is. That's why I keep saying your political process, I'm not criticizing it as such, but my goodness, it's brutal. It's way more brutal and soul-destroying than what the political process is in Canada, where Sasha is, or in Australia. Jacoby.
Yep, Jacoby, quickly, and then Sasha.
Okay, I'll go as fast as I can. There are just a couple of quick things we want to touch on. Obama had a wave that was behind him because of his youth, and he was a great orator. Biden wasn't that much of a push that people liked. It was just, he was a great orator, and he inspired a lot of people, and that's what brought out a lot of the Black community and a lot of individuals that wanted to come behind him. Kamala Harris is riding the wave of not only the Black community, but also women, because this year the women are on the ballot based on what's been ever since Roe has been overturned. That's been a big push. And J.D. Vance, the reason why people don't really care about what Trump says, because he says some very awful things. He said some things worse than what J.D. Vance has said, but it's been baked in the cake. But the problem is that was a very idiotic pick by Trump, because it was just a reiteration of Trump. And so people didn't know J.D. Vance, so they're listening to J.D. Vance. So that's putting a magnifying glass on the horrible things that he's saying, and that's turning people off from what Trump is saying, because it's actually becoming like an echo, because people never really listened to Trump. He was tuned out. People were desensitized. But now because of J.D. Vance, people are starting to say, okay, that is strange, and I'm turned away from there. So that's turning off a lot of independents. So it's a very bad pick, and J.D. Vance is really, they cannot replace J.D. Vance because of how they dealt with what they did with Biden. They over pushed their argument on Biden about his age. Once they replaced him, they cried that they couldn't replace him because it was against the rules. They actually brought out lawsuits that they were going to sue to keep Biden on the ticket. Now, you cannot replace J.D. Vance in the same light, but what they're going to, if they try, they're going to lose a lot of face, because then they've got to take in a lot of the incoming of, hey, you said you picked the best people, you picked J.D. Vance, and you vetted J.D. Vance. Now, because he's hurting you, you're going to take him off. So that's a drag on there. Also, we've got to realize that it's very odd that Trump, after an assassination attempt on his life, an actual RNC convention, he never received a bump. That is a problem that they're going to have to deal with, especially
he's been getting a little bump right now.
In comparison,
J.D. Vance, if they replace him, I don't think it'll be because J.D. Vance is replaced as such. It'll be J.D. Vance has some other family issue that he has to deal with, and he's given a bit of money somewhere and just go away. That's what will happen. Right? J.D. Vance will drop out.
Historically speaking, look at the bumps that every candidate has received after their conventions. RNC, DNC, everybody receives a bump. Trump really didn't. He received the trickle. A point or two is not really a bump. People have received 6-point bumps. Trump has never gotten that.
No, he got a 2-point bump.
Yeah.
All right. So there's the thing. There's a social media campaign being done by the Democrats right now. # Trump is weird. And I think the idea behind it is really like pay attention to what Trump says and what Vance says.
I don't think that's going to work, Rick. But J.D. Vance's childless comment. I don't have children, Okay, now I'm not in your system, but if I was and I was on that side of politics, that would annoy me because there's reasons I don't have kids. I'd like to have them. Like, leave me alone. So it's pretty important that comments like that doesn't go down well, especially when they're trying to broaden their base and broaden the amount of people who vote for them.
JD Vance comment has upset Republicans, even on Fox News. Trey Gowdy had to do a 5-minute set talking about how he disregarded that, and it was such a bad thing, and trying to give JD Vance an opportunity to change that, but it didn't work.
Well,
So
we're out of time, folks. It's been a great show. I'm going to run out. Good luck, Team USA and Australia and all the teams around the world. It's just wonderful to watch the Olympics. It's a bridge to so many countries around the world. Enjoy it. It's here every 4 years. I'm going to take some time this afternoon, go watch it on the big screen, have a cold one. Looking forward to seeing you. Shaq, I'll call you in about 15 minutes. I've got another meeting. I'm looking forward to speaking with you soon.
Just send me a text, mate. I'll call you. It's free for me to call.
Okay. Thank you.